Hello, everybody. Welcome to another week of UGASports Live. My name is Radi Nabulsi. I am your host. I'm joined by Dayne Young and, of course, Jim Donnan, the Hall of Famer, the former Georgia Bulldogs head coach, and the man you are all here to listen to. Coach, we're less than 10 weeks away from football season. I saw that this past Saturday was 70 days, 10 weeks. I won't exactly say it's getting closer, but it's a hell of a lot closer than it was back in March and February when we were kind of just coming off the back-to-back titles. Things are kind of heating up, but we are, and things have been red hot on the recruiting trail. Georgia's been killing it, and I expect for the first few days of July, there's a bunch of guys who are going to announce their decisions, so it's going to stay hot on the recruiting trail. But we are officially in the dead period. The team, as you always point out, can work 8 hours with the coaches. But what's going on? Just give us a quick hitter right now on what's going on in the last few days of June, the first couple of days of July.
Well, Sunday was, as you mentioned, the last day that you could have a recruit on campus, and so Monday starts the 3 week to 3.5 weeks of the coaches actually having vacation time, and it also has about an 8 or 9 day period here where the players can kind of kick back and don't have anything real organized for themselves. It's just like a 9 day period there. So whether they count Saturday, Sundays too. But the idea is, you've gone hard all year and let's just build up to it. As you mentioned, 10 weeks. So you just can't go hard all the time. And particularly now with this 8 hour week that you can use, as you mentioned, that the players and the coaches can get together. So you have a lot of retention there and you have a lot of good teaching. So definitely looking forward to some of these guys coming off rehab, some coming off major injuries. The freshman group that reported this summer that were about 5 or 6 guys that didn't get here in January. So it's all coming together here. And fortunately, no bad news at this point. So it looks to me like we can have a good show talking about the positives. So I know some of the coaches are on some really nice trips with their families and get a chance to kick back a little bit. But, they keep one coach here every day, call it kind of like the officer of the day, and somebody from ops is here too to make sure if there's any kind of issues with the players. But it's pretty much a skeleton staff over there right now.
I walked by their practice facility yesterday, and they were still playing loud music over the speakers. So there's some workouts happening, and there's some sounds coming from over there. But, yeah, it's skeleton staff.
Yeah, I mean, they got to keep that music jumping all the time. That's for sure.
I can see the players, they're looking, hey, the coaches aren't around or the coaches are upstairs, just, keeping an eye, make sure nobody gets hurt. But we can control the PA system that Kirby Smart uses all the time. Let's plug in our music instead of having him yell at us nonstop. I love it. Coach, you mentioned some of the positive stuff's going on. Dane, hit on a couple of those things.
Yeah, so I think last night watching what LSU did to Florida, Coach, I know that's close to your heart whenever Florida on that stage has that kind of performance. But it's Georgia's baseball coach, Wes Johnson, was at the heart of that as the pitching coach for LSU. The Tigers, my goodness, what a run it is for their athletic department with a national championship in baseball and women's basketball. They won the SEC West in football. So a lot of those hires were made, I think, within about 6 months of each other. And Georgia gets to poach from that staff. LSU, just a great performance in the College World Series. And their fans showed up and made Omaha just a home game for them.
Yeah, it was a tremendous victory. I mean, I enjoyed watching all 3 games, although the second and third game were kind of football scores. But I was kind of anxious to see what Wes was going to do with that big gun pitcher yesterday, whether he was going to go with him or not. And certainly made a good decision based on the end of it. And just the way you just don't usually see a championship game unless you go out to California and watch one last January where somebody kicked somebody's butt that bad. It's definitely impressive. I've always been a baseball fan. I grew up, Mickey Mantle was my idol. one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make was in the 9th grade. My dad told me I had to pick one between tennis and baseball, and just really, I mean, I cried all night when I told the coach I wasn't going to play baseball. I just loved playing, and baseball, softball, fast pitch softball, slow pitch. Burlington's an industrial town. We had all that stuff. So baseball's in my blood. It's like basketball too, but there's no doubt I'm football first. But and then you're going to mention.
Well, the other thing I wanted to mention with baseball is that as I was watching LSU and Florida players get up there, it seems like every time the player was from the state of Georgia, whether they're from Dalton or Ringgold. And I thought that was an exciting prospect to see that a lot of these players on that stage, Wes Johnson already knows where they're coming from, the best programs in the state of Georgia. And then now there's a chance that a pitcher that he's tutored for the last year could be the number 1 overall pick in the MLB draft. Just a lot of positive momentum for a new coaching staff, I think.
Yeah, it kind of reminds you of Kirby Smart being defensive coordinator at Alabama there in the championship game several years ago, and then coming to Georgia. Same kind of scenario, a guy with background in the SEC. And, and I noticed Wake Forest had a good pitcher from Swanee too. So a lot of good players in the state. I'm sure Coach Johnson will use the transfer portal, and, he'll be off and running. And it's kind of a give and take when you don't have the opportunity to be here in person, but there, you kind of go the other way. The exposure he gets being on a championship team is really good cred when he starts talking to these different players about coming to Georgia. And we lost to one other player here that I noticed you wanted to mention that kind of semi-happy for him and sad for our tennis team, but you might mention about Ethan.
Yeah, Ethan Quinn, national champion in men's singles, Georgia tennis, going pro. I know this was a tough decision. This was one that had to be considered. I think there was a shot that he would be coming back to Georgia, but he's going to go pro. He's had a great year. He's playing in the U.S. Open later this year. I would imagine the organizers at that tournament in Atlanta, the Atlanta Open, will do everything they can to try to get him there. But overall, just what a career is, a year and a half at Georgia. But I think it's one that elevated the program, and the recruiting class coming in can continue what he started.
Yeah, just an outstanding young man, number one, very genuine. It hurt him to leave, but it's hard to turn down the financial benefits of being a professional tennis player. I mean, even the guys that are ranked 250 or making big money. Just so many tournaments worldwide. There's so many ways to get exposure, and also the some of the perks that you get, advertising the different brands. And he'll get his own coach and his own agent and all that stuff. But just real proud of Ethan and what he represented. He won a couple tournaments this summer already on the mini tour there. He won one out in Wichita about 2 weeks ago. It's called the 25 tournament. I think it's not a lot of money, but hey, and it kind of leaves us hanging a little bit because, we do have a good recruiting class, but you lose your number one player coming back. That's going to be, even though we got a great guy coming in, we would have had a 1-2 punch there, would have been phenomenal. So I look for Coach Diaz. He's picked up one guy a couple of weeks ago from Southern Cal in the transfer portal, and we've got one guy coming back. So
Roddy's favorite, Perez Pena.
Yeah, we need to get one more, maybe another guy in the transfer portal. And sometimes it's late. You see this kind of move, and you see, I'm sure some people are getting in touch with Coach Hunt and Coach Diaz saying, hey, Quinn's gone. I got a chance to go play for a winning team. I'm a big gun singles player, number one for some smaller school, and maybe we'll get that.
One of the exciting things for Georgia is that for the last decade, you could say that the most accomplished men's American tennis player has been John Isner, and he came from UGA. And then you look at some of the Bubba Watson winning 2 green jackets at the Masters, and the golfers that have had success. The fact that these guys are out there on golf, tennis, other sports too, just doing so well for Georgia, I don't think there's many colleges that can claim that kind of success in some of these sports.
Yeah, really impressive when you look at the list of golfers that Coach Hacks had. And Kisner, all those guys that had many wins out there, and it speaks well of our golf tradition. So hopefully we'll get somebody to come in there. And for the fans, you play 6 singles and you play 3 doubles, but you only get 1 point for it. So if you win 2 doubles and lose 1, you get 1 point. Then you got to win 3 more singles to win 4-3. So huge loss for us. But when you think about it, it's kind of like a guy coming out early in the draft. It's like Champ Bailey going out early, or Roquan Smith, or whoever it might be. Guy's ready to go. You got to let him go, and just be glad you had him when you had him.
Yeah, and that's the thing about you look at those guys that were very successful on the PGA Tour, and you just wish that you'd gotten a few more titles at Georgia. Georgia does have a couple of back-to-back football titles, which makes things a lot better. And part of that is due to Kirby Smart's recruiting. And I want to mention something on our front page today because I think it's a fantastic feature that Jed May puts together. It's called the Tuesday Tracker. And if you notice on my little handle there, I said I'm still waiting I'm still on commit watch. I mentioned when the show opener that Georgia is right in the thick of it for some guys who are going to decide very soon as to where they're going to play their college football. And it's tough it's tough for me. And I run this site poorly, albeit that's what I do, to keep up with all the different guys that Georgia's recruiting. It seems like there's 5 of them named Justin something. And it can get, if you're just a novice or you're busy and you can't keep up with what the latest recruiting thing is. And you go to the vault and there's tons of updates at UGASports, but you're like, what happened this past week? Check out the Tuesday Tracker. Go to the Tuesday Tracker on UGASports.com. And it's basically going to let you know when Georgia is surging with a player and when they're sliding with a player, when they're moving up with a guy, when they're moving down. Because over the course of a week, especially last week, you had a ton of official visits, and some Georgia targets were visiting elsewhere. Some were visiting here. Williams-Nwaneri, the number 3 guy in the nation, the number 1 defensive end, went out to Missouri for an official visit, left on Saturday, cut his official visit short a little bit, flew all the way to Atlanta, came up to Athens so that Georgia could see him on Sunday. Georgia's right in the thick of it. Now, they're going to have to fight off Oklahoma and Missouri. But the point is, on the Tuesday Tracker, the number 3 player in the nation, 5-star defensive end, number 1 guy in Missouri, number 1 guy at his position, came to Georgia. So we got him moving up. We have Joseph Ajonye moving up, Justin Williams moving up, other guys moving down. Georgia's falling with some guys. So if you don't keep up with the blow-by-blows every day of what's going on with Georgia recruiting, check out the Tuesday Tracker that Jed May puts together. And he does it with input from the rest of the staff, Blaine Gilmer, Trent Smallwood. They're doing a fantastic job. Trent just got back from Orlando. He went down there to see the top 50 players in the nation in the Under Armour camp down there. The Future 50, he interviewed a ton of them. Tomorrow at Lake Point, the Next Gen Pro Day will be out there, and Rivals has invited 100 of the top underclassmen to come to Lake Point, show us what they can do. So a ton of recruiting stuff going on. So again, even though, as Coach pointed out, Sunday was the last day you could have them on campus. We're entering the dead period. Some of the coaches are going to go on vacation. A lot of decisions are coming up right in the coming days, coming weeks, and Georgia is in the thick of it. So check that out. Speaking of making a good decision, I want you to check out our friends at Athens Ford. You can't make a bad decision out there. Say you decide to get service done in your vehicle. They'll do a great job on it. They'll guarantee it. It'll be quick. It'll be fast. Say you decide to buy a brand new car. You'll get one with a lifetime powertrain warranty on it. Say you decide to buy a pre-owned vehicle. If it's under 80,000 miles, you get a lifetime powertrain warranty on it. As long as I don't think they do it on like the German, the BMWs and stuff like that, but just about any other car, they have it on those. So you can't make a bad decision if you commit to going to Athens Ford to get your next vehicle or to get service done, or if you want to customize your vehicle. They have the customization folks out there. If you have one of those big trucks, you want to get all the bells and whistles on it, they can handle it. If you want to increase your performance, they can soup them up out there. So check out our friends at Athens Ford. Brian Clower, huge Georgia fans. They support the program like nobody else. So if you're a Georgia fan and you're watching this, you need to support the folks who support the team, and that would be our friends at Athens Ford.
Roddy, you joked about there being 5 guys named Justin and how do you keep track of them. But I do remember in 2017 where Georgia had, I think, 5 DeAndres spelled 3 different ways.
Yeah.
So I don't know how this happens with the names at Georgia, but there are popular ones over time.
Well, you could go back 18 years, whatever was popular in the baby names book, right at the top, that they pop off that way. So yeah, it was. Do you remember Devondre Seymour and there's a ton of them.
Let's get to our position group breakdown. We're doing this week by week, so you can go back 2 weeks ago and hear about wide receivers and tight ends. We did offensive line last week, and I want to do defensive line this week. But, Coach, I kind of want to start with just a philosophical caveat of how Georgia does defense, because there is a bit of crossover here with outside linebacker and edge. Can you kind of tell me the difference in between some of Georgia's defensive linemen and an outside linebacker? Because on my list, I don't have Chaz Chambliss, but we see him with his hand in the ground sometimes.
Yeah, we have so many different packages when we run odd and even fronts, where you can sub or mini sub within the framework of the call. And it usually gets to be a 4 down or a 3 down look for your front. So most of these guys are pretty interchangeable, although the ones we talk about in the middle, it's kind of hard to play a zero technique or nose guard without being a really massive guy because of what the position entails. But if you just envision 3 down linemen on an odd front, a nose guard and 2 tackles, some people call the tackles defensive ends. That's what the pros do. The guys that are playing 4-eye or 5 technique outside shoulder of the tackle. So those are called defensive ends. And then the people outside of them can be an outside linebacker. Mostly an outside linebacker is one that drops, plays outside the tight end and drops, and the one on the weak side is a defensive end, a strong side defensive end type guy that comes off the edge on the nub side where you don't have somebody covering him. So you can be interchangeable. We've got so many different moving parts on our defense, but the real critical part of the Kirby Smart defense going back to Alabama is some really good interior linemen that can hold the fort, so to speak, can knock people back and put some pressure on the quarterback without relying on 5, 6, 7-man pressures from your outside people. So it's a very significant part of our defense, and it's also a part of our offense because we want to train our offense to be physical and go against guys that are physical and can take on blocks and get off blocks and things like that. It makes your offense so much better. So very much an integral part. We've got a premium defensive line coach and Trey Scott from Crosset, Arkansas, home of Barry Switzer, two of the finest guys ever to come out of Crosset, but really has evolved as a coach and a recruiter and is very comfortable in his own skin here. Really knows what the defense is all about, and has got great relationship and rapport with the players. And so we've got an all-star defensive staff. There's no question about it. Every one of those guys capable of being a coordinator, capable of being a head coach, just really strong defensive staff.
2 things I'd point out. One, that versatility that you're talking about. So Trayvon Walker became a number 1 overall pick in the NFL because he could do so much from that spot. The other thing is, if you want to point to one position group that Georgia has elevated to become a national championship contender, I think this is it with the defensive line and the NFL showing you that with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and Nolan Smith and on and on and on.
Yeah, just look at the draft, particularly inside people. We got guys playing up there that are really not only playing, but making really big showings up there, like Ed Sullivan would say, a really big shoe. We've got a lot of stuff going on with those guys up there. So with that being said, we'll start out and talk about these guys and give you my opinion and see what Roddy can find wrong with it.
I'm going to start with a guy that in doing a podcast with you all offseason, other than Brock Bowers, who is an obvious answer of who makes your mouth water, I don't know that I've heard you talk more glowingly about a player than you have Mykel Williams.
Well, Jalen Carter probably, but
I'm saying this offseason since Carter's departure.
Yeah, and I've been had a little angst there because of the surgery that Michael had. But at the same time, probably was good to go on and get it out of the way because it's kind of a nuisance type injury. I mean, he was playing hurt, but he's got that under control. He looks good. I mean, he looks the part. Walk in any place in America, pro or college, and look like a guy that should be on the team. Big, angular, can take on blocks, can rush the passer. And beside that, all-star person. Just if you wanted somebody to represent your program in any way, form, or fashion, this guy is just class personified. I mean, I don't know. I can't find anything wrong with him. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty that you could nitpick about his football-wise, but character, grades, comes from a great family, loves Georgia. I mean, he's the ultimate dog in my opinion.
What stuck out to me he went to Hardaway High School in Columbus, and he had opportunities to go to other more storied high school programs in the Columbus area, and he didn't. He went to play at Hardaway, and I always thought highly of that. Let's get to some veterans on the defensive line. Nazir Stackhouse.
Well, here's a guy that probably underrated nationally, not underrated among our players or among our coaches or the people that watch him week in and week out. He's kind of been in the shadows when you look at some of the guys that have played there. But this guy has really good skill sets, going to be drafted, and can run. I mean, you could put him in there and play tight end, can play a lot of positions, but can play the middle, nose guard, can play outside three tech. He's just a player, and I think he'll really blossom this year. I really think more reps, more called on time to be the guy, and he's got a lot of respect among his peers because of the way he works.
Zion Logue.
Here's a guy that between him and Van Pran, both those guys could have a debate, and I don't know who would win. This guy is very articulate, has tremendous people skills, and which, doesn't relate to being a football player that much, but does relate to being the kind of character you want in your players. And usually guys with good character and good ability turn out being better players because, you can depend on them, and they're not looking for reasons why to find fault with anything. He's just an ultimate team guy. Has waited his turn. He's another guy that's going to get drafted. I mean, he's got skill level that you like, and physically tough, and I'm glad we got him.
All the jokes about being around Georgia forever. Stetson Bennett gets to hand that baton off to Trammell Walthour.
Yeah, I mean, he's been in here for 2 terms, Trump and Biden. I mean, this guy's been here forever. I mean, come on. It's really unreal how much he's been around, but a very good team guy. Had a little injury this spring that he had, taken care of, but you can count on him. Go in there and just be a nuisance. I mean, just go in there and make plays just by his determination. Not overly big, but really has gone the route here of, I think, went to a junior college, Roddy, and then came here. And
I got to take my lumps on him, Coach. I loved him when Richard LeCount's dad mentioned him, like, hey, follow this kid. And then Georgia offered him. I'm like, this kid is way too small to play at Georgia. Way too small. Why are you doing this favor? I was skeptical. I questioned again, and every time I question Kirby, it makes me look like an idiot. And I have to eat my crow on Trammell Walthour. Don't get me wrong. I love the guy. Super nice. Was a great interview. Was always would call you back. Fun to talk to. But I'm just thinking there's no way this guy puts on enough mass to play SEC football down in the trenches like Georgia. And that guy has kicked ass. So shout out to Trammell Walthour for just being shutting down anybody that doubted him.
That's why you don't get too caught up in doubting the coaches.
I shouldn't.
I'm just talking about overall. People worry about stars and all. Like this kid we got this weekend, I can't pronounce his name, but a massive player from North Carolina. What reminds me so much of a recruitment part of Richard Seymour. Richard Seymour was 17 when he got here. This kid just turned 17, so if he comes in January, he'll be 17, and he's 350. Just a real puppy bulldog. I mean, this guy is going to be massive and can move and, a lot of potential. I'd rather take a guy that size that's younger, it's going to get in here and lift weights and do all the stuff that we do to develop him and put him through your system than maybe a guy that's, maybe older that's might have reached his peak. So good job by Trey Scott. I mean, that's 2 years in a row we've gotten, really good players out of North Carolina. I guess Wilson was an offensive lineman, but we got Jamal Jarrett last year, and then this guy, I mean, makes Mac Brown mad, I'm sure.
Real quick, I want to mention the last 3 commits that Georgia's had have been defensive tackles, defensive ends to go along with this segment. Jordan Thomas out of Ramsey, New Jersey, Quintavious Johnson out of Atlanta, Mays High School, and then the kid, don't know how to say his name, Namadi Okboko. I'm sure I butchered that, and I'm sorry, Mr. Okboko.
Yeah, we'll learn how to. We'll just get his number for early and then let him roll.
6'4", 349 pounds, as you say, just turned 17 out of North Carolina.
Now, seriously, how does he 349? I mean, instead of 350. I mean,
he missed a biscuit today, Coach.
Yeah, one little biscuit. He's from Garner, North Carolina, where I had so many recruiting trips over there to Garner and all around. That if you just envision Atlanta with Marietta and all that stuff, and Dunwoody, all those. Raleigh's kind of like that. You've got all these suburban areas out there with all these schools, and Garner was one that always had good players, good old boys that could really play football. So just the fact he's from Garner is in my favor for him because I know he's got to be tough to play there.
Next guy, a guy that I think has at least the opportunity to rise to the challenge has been issued, Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins. Yeah,
here's a guy that's kind of, it's time for you to do it, man. You can do it. Get some consistency. He looks good. He makes plays, but, he's got a chance to be the guy now. And what's he going to do with it? And maybe gets a little bit more people rate him a little higher just because of the way he looks. He just got to be effective and do the job like he's capable of. He's had some good scrimmages, and I'm all for him. I just think there's a real difference between potential and performance. Let's get out there and do it. And he certainly can. I'm pulling hard for him. Another guy that is just very and in the wings that is very personable. We saw him interviewing people at the championship game. Warren Brinson is very athletic. Just got good. I mean, he can cover kicks. He can do a lot of things. Not quite as athletic as Trayvon Walker, but similar mode that can really run. Has got good burst and has understood the last year and a half or so what he's capable of, and not just glad to be at Georgia. Now he wants to be a dominant player, and he can be that. He's got a pro career ahead of him with his size and his ability to disengage and more than anything, just run like he can at his size. I just think Logue, Stackhouse, him, Michael, and this kid Hall we're going to talk about all got really good futures as far as NFL.
I was shocked when we were talking to Trey Scott out in L.A., and I basically had him go through his defensive players, tell me something good about him, tell me something bad about him. And when he got to Warren Brinson, you hadn't really heard his name a whole lot. He's like, he basically intimated that they had to convince him to stay. And I'm like, what? He could have gone pro? He's like, oh, absolutely. Like I was the idiot, which I am, I'm sure. But it's like I was an idiot for even doubting the fact that, Warren Brinson was on the cusp of just declaring early and going to the NFL because he's got the skills for it. I'm like, whoa, that's good to know. And we're kind of asking Scott about it. I'm like, you're losing Jalen Carter. And he's just grinning ear to ear. He's like, yeah, but look what I got coming back. So he's in hog heaven with his depth over there.
Right.
Guy that I haven't heard a lot about, so I'm excited to hear your take, Coach. Jonathan Jefferson.
Yeah, here's a guy that is just, has some ability. It's kind of in between. He's like kind of a different, point guard, forward in basketball. Just, kind of an angular guy that doesn't have a lot of mass, but plays really hard, has good football IQ. I just don't know if he got quite enough girth inside to be, knock you back down after down, but he can make plays with his quickness, and he's definitely – I'm glad we got him here. I mean, I'm just picking at straws here of looking at things, but he doesn't fit the mold of being the big guy inside, but he's got enough ability that he can play on the edge a little bit and be good on special teams, and I think he's somebody that is going to continue to get better and keep hanging around here and keep getting the reps.
Christian Miller.
Christian just got to take a reality pill. I mean, you're here now. You're not playing high school ball. This is the big leagues, buddy. Bear down. Your reputation's good, but you got to come in here and show your wares. And he definitely got size, quickness, speed. I'm just anxious to see him going and developing. In all fairness to him, I mean, it's hard to come in here in January and just knock everybody back and be the same kind of guy you were in high school when you're going against guys like Mims and Rattledge and those guys over there. So he's going to be a good player. He just got to understand you got to get in the briar patch a little bit, get in there and get knocked around.
And then more of the young guys, Jordan Hall.
Yeah, that's one that's going to make my mouth water for a long time. I mean, this guy's got good work ethic. He was way advanced when he came in here. He looked like he was, he looks on the hoof like he's 26, 27 years old.
He really does.
He's a very mature-looking guy and plays hard, practices hard. One of the days I was out there, he kind of got nicked up, and they were telling him to get out, and he stayed in there and kept fighting through it, which I was glad to see. But you don't want to get yourself hurt, but he's got some guys ahead of him that are going to help him and train him. Those guys we talked about earlier. But this guy is a potential big-time player for Georgia, one of the highly repeated five-star guy. I mean, when you're a five-star D lineman, that means that even guys like Radi can pick you out. No, I think Roddy's Roddy's a lot better than some of these guys that don't know if a ball's blown up or stuff. But, I mean, I'm telling you, Hall I'm fired up about Hall. Another thing about him is people skills. I went to an event over there at the facility that they had, and they had the different players taking you around and showing you stuff. And I was just there to kind of smooth some of the bigwigs, and talk to them a little bit. I was just kind of a passerby, but he happened to be the guy that was in our group that was showing us around. And, whoo, man, this guy has he's got it. I mean, I'm thinking about, those people that were walking around had to think of every player in Georgia like this guy. Unreal. I mean, he very good manners and opening up the doors for women. I mean, he just classy guy. I'm fired up about Hall.
I'll co-sign that, Roddy, because, we're always looking and trying to figure out who sports communications is going to anoint as kind of the next media spokesperson on the team, kind of like the modern Cedric Van Pran right now. He gets so many media opportunities. I was told Jordan Hall can do that he'll probably be, maybe not for this first year, but in future years, he'll be.
Well, he won't get a chance this year. Kirby won't let him. So
he won't let him talk. Hey,
but I do hope that when I say a few things like that once in a while, I'm not really divulging anything that they wouldn't want out there, but it is something that maybe people listen to the broadcast can understand that I like to share that about these kids, and I don't think I'm giving anything away. It's just and there's got to be a lot more of those around. Early on, I remember the first time I talked about Kendall Milton on the show, walking by him in the training room, and he came over to me and said, "Are you Coach Donnan?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I saw your picture up on the wall down there. I'm Kendall Milton. I'm from California." I said, "Hey, I know you, but how many kids are going to come up and do that like that?" And we built up a good relationship. I've kind of helped him through some injuries as far as just encouraging him and all. And it's just, that's one of the things with my wife being gone and everything. I just enjoy being around those kids. I'm so thankful that Kirby lets me be over there some. I don't get to go as much as I'd like to because they just can't go watch them practice and all. But, it just really is fun for me to be around those kids and see what they, that's what you are as a coach. You enjoy seeing guys highs and lows, like Ratledge when he was hurt, just pushing him along and just encouraging him, saying, "Hey, I've seen guys come through here like you, and I promise you, you're going to be a player. It's tough to be sitting out here, but keep working." What a player he is. So those are just little things here without getting too hunky-dory here. But we got to read too much about some of the things that are happening, which, that's certainly something we got to do a better job with. But, those kids went over there to Camp Sunshine. A lot of them went over there to Murray's golf tournament on Monday with the ESP. It's just these kids do good with the community.
Yeah, we'll have a story coming on the guys that went over to be part of the ESP golf tournament to help raise funds for that fantastic program.
That's a good tee up by me there.
Yeah, it was. So, Jed went out there and spent the day, and he had a bunch of interviews with some freshmen even. So be sure to check out the front page of UGASports.com.
Four more names here. We have four more
left.
We have Jamal Jarrett.
Big job.
Well, that guy there really has taken advantage of being in a systematic program of, all guys that size, Jordan Davis, everybody. I mean, you're going to constantly fight your weight because you're going to have to be in a movement type situation to play in this defense. So he came in here as a young high school guy that was a little bit overweight, and he's worked hard at it and certainly got brute force speed. Strength, and he's going to be a guy. We got to remember he's just been here for one semester, so he's going to help us.
CJ Madden.
Here's a guy I think that's underrated, that people are taking for granted. Plays really hard, is not super big, but going to play on the outside. Has got a good motor to him. Really plays hard, plays as good as he can on every snap. Is very consistent. And I've been impressed with the way he's come along. And you always want to know your assignment, and then you can execute. He doesn't make many mental errors, and he's there. And he's the kind of guy that'll help your team, special teams. I'm happy about Madden. He's a better player than I thought he was. I was thinking a little bit too much about his size, what he didn't have, but he certainly got a lot on the ball.
And the last two,
in practice. He looked great.
Taking 20 minutes to get through this position group. That tells you how fortunate Georgia is.
Okay. We're not at any time frame. We got to tell these people about what the old coach thinks.
Salmon Pimba and Damon Wilson.
Well, let me tell you something. Whoever got those two guys here needs to get a bonus because, man, I'm telling you, those two guys are. We've talked about it. And I'm going to say it again. Those 21 guys that got in here in January, we haven't had as a group that many guys come here at once since Kirby's been here, in my opinion. But now maybe won't pull out be quite as good, but as some of those other classes. But this 21, you lose all those guys to the pros and transfer and all that, and then all of a sudden your team can practice because you've got 21 new players and you can keep going ones and twos and do two spot and then do all the things that you were doing in the fall, in the spring, which normally you can't because you don't have enough players. And Pimba and Wilson, come on, man. Just play. Put them on the bus. Let them play. Those guys are players. And then Pimba's maybe a little bit ahead of him, but Wilson, I don't know. I can't say he's that far. They're both just very capable of being to the point where they make my mouth water.
I mean, you got a pair of 5 stars, both out of Florida. And Pimba, 6'4", 250. Wilson, 6'5", 238. Just two freaks of nature.
And you had Hall's 5-star inside guy.
Yeah. Looking back at this, Georgia had 3 5-star guys, and they were all on defensive line. So, I want to put in Gabe Harris. I know
you got to add that corner and then safety. God, man, it's just hey. You know what's good? You started seeing all these ratings of groups around the country of a defense and an offense, like the best offensive line, the best D line, the best linebackers, the best secondary. I mean, Georgia's 1 or 2 in every phase of the defensive team. DBs, safeties, corners, linebackers. I mean, defensive line, outside guys. I mean, this is going to be so much better defense than we had last year. Our defense was good last year, but
you went 15-0. How can it be better?
But I mean,
I know. I'm just giving you shit because last year you told us early on that they'd struggle.
We won't give them 40-some again in the game. I can tell you that.
Yeah. So we won't need that. Won't need that again. So that's the whole listing.
That's it. We'll do linebackers next week.
All right, so that because we had a question there about Marvin Jones Jr. and I think you got
Marvin Jones will be an outside guy.
That's
what I'm saying. So
that's why I started the conversation with the outside linebacker defensive end deal, because Marvin goes out there, Chaz Chambliss goes out there. It's that hybrid spot. I'm going to include those with linebackers.
What are we going to do about next week? The 4th of July is on Tuesday, right?
Well, it could be the following.
I expect y'all to be here.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Hey,
we'll take that day off.
One question for you, right? If D-U-L-Y spells Julie, what does J-U-L-Y spell?
July.
Okay, I thought you were going to say Julie.
I almost did. It took me a second, but I know you always set me up, so I have to slam on the middle brakes before I get drugged by Coach. Speaking of making the break, I want to mention our friends over at My Perfect Franchise. If you want to make a break from your job and take a moment to think about where you are in your career, in your professional career, and you're like, I just don't like it as much. I don't get enough paid time off. I don't get enough time with the family. I don't have enough income. Be your own boss. Now, that's real easy for me to throw that out there and tell you to do it, and you go, well, come on, dude, that's hard. It is hard. It's hard to know. I run UGASports.com. I had to learn a lot. I screwed up, made tons and tons of errors. I wish I'd had Andy Luedecke and My Perfect Franchise guys out there kind of pointing the way for me, saying, look, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to learn. This is how you need to be prepared to be the boss and to take over this stuff. This is what here's the best fit for you. Here's what you need financially. Here's what you need from a resource standpoint. Andy Luedecke and the folks at My Perfect Franchise will set you up that way, and they will try to get you through all the different options that are out there and cater a plan based to what your goals are, what your resources are, and where you want to see yourself in 4 or 5 years from now. So reach out to myperfectfranchise.net, Andy Luedecke. They will take great care of you. It is free. It doesn't cost you anything. If you talk to them for a ton of time, weeks and such, and then you decide you don't want to do it, it's okay. He'll always be there for you. Speaking of being in his own business, I want to mention our friend Matt Casey out at Academia Brewing Company, one of the top brewers in the state. They keep winning awards. Their places are always packed because they make excellent beer, fantastic beer, beer that wins all sorts of awards, beer that has I don't want to call it a cult-like following because that almost makes it sound small, but the fact that the people that try Academia beer come back over and over and over again. So, some of the bigger names in the Athens brewing market out there. I will tell you will not find a more devoted following than the folks that go to Academia Brewing Company. And it's also a great restaurant. Nobody else can say that. So if you want just a great meal, if you don't even like beer, hell, go to Academia Brewing Company, just eat dinner, just eat lunch. I guarantee it'll become one of your favorite restaurants. So hit them up when you get the chance.
Let's go to some questions from our members over at UGASports.com, and then we'll slide in some YouTube ones as well. Baseline question here from Jason G17. What are some of Coach Donnan's areas of concern heading into the season for the Dogs?
Well, number one, get through the rest of the summer unscathed, injury-wise, academic-wise, off the field situations. Just get to the first game with what we got. Number two, the injury situation with Munden. How's he going to come around? Also, the back how's
Branson
Robinson going to be? Different kicker, different holder. How's that going to work out? So those are my major concerns. And then how the quarterbacks are going to compete with each other would be something that, you're looking forward to, because that's a very competitive situation. Beck certainly starts out as the guy, and it's his job to lose. So Vandergrift certainly gives him a lot of pressure on him, and also Stockton. But those would be my major things.
I would toss in depth at tackle on offense. Experience depth for sure.
You don't get experience depth. You're right.
Yeah,
that's right.
I think there's talent. Don't get me wrong, but we talked about this last week. The backup center is Austin Blaskey. The backup tackle on both sides is Austin Blaskey. Well, if two offensive linemen get hurt, and one of them is a center, all of a sudden you have to do some maneuvering. But there's versatility. Trust playing as many places as he can. You can manage it, but I'm just saying that it gets tougher pretty quick if you have a couple injuries.
Well, and you're forgetting Wilson. Wilson, to me, would be a guy you jump in there at center in a New York minute. Drew Bobo hasn't played, but he's very capable there too, but no experience. But then at tackle, Blaskey has played, what's he called? Chad
Lindbergh.
Lindbergh has some experience, but we don't have a situation where you've got a guy like McClendon and then Mims behind him, or Jones and like we had there. That's for sure at tackle.
I can't wait to see Monroe Freeling out there. But you mentioned, we talked about the fact that Amarius Mims had mono, and so who was running at right tackle while he was out? Austin Blaskey.
I'm not sure.
I'm just saying I heard it was Austin Blaskey, so maybe that's a guy who, to Dane's point, he gets around. So he can fight over left tackle or fight over right tackle.
Play top five, because he and Green are neck and neck at left tackle, so Blaskey can play over there. But you also have Chad over there at right tackle. He can play there. Truss can move over there and play tackle. And, you got Micah Morris, who's a stallion type looking guy inside too. So there'll be a lot of mix and match. Hopefully we don't get the injuries.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
JCats 75205 wants me to ask you, Coach, about the coaching staff's ability to ignore recruiting stars and recruit players that Georgia wants. The examples that JCats gives is Stackhouse and Logue and how they're going to shine.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things about Kirby that maybe people could get into, but he could give a rat's ass what anybody thinks about on their opinion on recruiting. I mean, nothing wrong with people having an idea and they read it. Like Roddy said, that's good that we're going to have a chance. But Jed's talking about the guys that we're recruiting now, the tracker. But boy, they go through a unbelievable type of scrutiny to get the players on our team, starting with camps, individual workouts, all the things that they do to check out and see if they fit our system and what our needs are, the criteria for that position, plus the academic situation. Kirby's being a graduate here, he knows what it takes. Poor investment to bring somebody in here who can't make it academically. I mean, it's a grind here. I mean, you got a lot of these classes are set up for students that have got a lot higher, sometimes grade point average than some of these players. So it's I think he makes a good point. You just got to go with what you feel like it takes to play based on over the years. This is a criteria that we're going to take. And I remember back when I was talking to Bill Parcells about taking selected players and, what you have the criteria. The more exemptions you make in your drafting as a pro team or as in your recruiting as a college team, the more mistakes you're going to make. You know what you want. very seldom do you take an exemption. It's too much on the deal here.
I want to mention something real quick about the 3 stars versus 5 stars. There's only 32 players per year that we consider 5-star. That's a guy that we predict will be a first-round draft pick, and you're trying to pick it 3, 4, 5 years before the guy ever actually gets there. It's damn near impossible, but it's pretty close. 4 stars, that's a guy that we think has first to third round NFL potential. There's 7 rounds. Okay, there's a lot of rounds going. A 3-star guy in the Rivals ranking is considered one of the top 800 players, among the top 800 players in the nation. Potential all conference, like all SEC, all ACC, all Big 10, all Big 12, all Pac-12. Could have mid to low end pro potential, i.e., mid rounds, later rounds pro. So if you're getting a 3-star, that's still a guy that we expect could be drafted. So a 3-star is not a bad sign. A 3-star is pretty damn good. There's 3 million high school football players. We're talking about the top few hundred. So if you hear Georgia's getting a 3-star, don't be like, oh my God, what are they doing there? And hey, the coaches miss, we miss. We nail them sometimes. Coaches nail them sometimes. But don't ever disparage a 3-star guy. That is a high honor to be ranked that highly in the system.
Question from Calumet Dog. Who are the leaders of this class? Who's putting the time and making sure that others are also putting in the time? I've heard of eating off the floor, but who's driving that mentality from the player's standpoint? He says that it started with Nakobe Dean to Nolan Smith to who now on defense? And is there a guy on offense doing that?
Yeah, I think Van Pran and Bowers on offense certainly are guys that everybody, the way they work, and Bowers not a vocal leader like Van Pran, but both are good guys. And then Pop over on defense, all the guys look up to him. Munden does a good job too. And linebacker just normally, because they're making the calls, they're doing so much. But I think Buller is the guy just day in and day out that is going to come with his lunch pail and play hard and do what he needs to. And then inside, I like Logan Stackhouse, the way they do things.
Just John 419 says, who finishes 2023 with the most sacks at Georgia? And does sacks even matter with Georgia's defense?
Well, we talked about it before. We want pressure on the quarterback in hurries and things like that. But, the biggest people always look for sacks and things like that. But it's kind of like a baseball player, hits a 300. I mean, 1 out of every 3 times of the plate, he gets a hit. 2 times he doesn't. A defensive lineman might, have 800. I don't know how many plays they play in the course of a season. I got a stat there I'm going to look up here in a minute. But, I think for my guy to probably get the most would be Williams, Michael Williams. Maybe Chambliss will come in there and do some things. But and then you got to watch with Munden coming off the edge, moving the inside and coming through the A-gap. So those would be the 3, I would think.
Let's sneak in our last break here. Our friends over at Your Pie, Roddy. I went and tried they have the peach and prosciutto every year. They have a hot version of it this year, which is just amazing. So you need to go try that, Roddy, at the Athens location on Alps.
I think that's a great idea. I've always liked the peach and prosciutto, and I remember telling Drew when he mentioned it, he's like, hey, we had this new pizza. I'm like, that sounds horrible. And all I could think about was the people that would complain about or just argue back and forth about pineapple on a pizza. And I'm like, you're just trolling us by putting peach on there. And I remember we did a live remote from there, the one on Alps, the one that started it all. And he brought us the peach and prosciutto pizza. And I was like, holy crap, this thing is phenomenal. So look, if they're going to make it one of their specialty pizzas, it's been tested. It's been tried out. They actually have a kitchen over there. And remember, they used to have contests for people who could create pizzas, because that's the cool concept behind the whole thing is you walk in, you tell them everything you want on your pizza. So if you're a person who likes all the meats, you can get all the different meats. If you want tons of cheeses, you want all the vegetables, you've got a weird combination, they can cover it because it's totally customized. Just think of like when you go in to get a Subway sandwich. Same concept. So if they say, hey, look, we've got a peach and prosciutto, or we got a barbecue chicken bacon ranch, it's one of their specialties. If it's the Nat, it's the Ishka, it's the Southern Heat, my favorite. Try it out. And today is Double Points Tuesday, so go ahead and order your pizza on the app. Have it delivered, pick it up, get your points, get your free pizzas, free drinks, free gelatos, free breadsticks, all that fun stuff. Also want to mention our friends over at Dead Soxy. Talk about somebody who has a great concept. Dead Soxy, if you want comfortable socks, and it's hot, we're starting to get to those dog days of summer. It's starting to get really warm out there. So it's supposed to be this high heat for the next couple of weeks or so with a high pressure system. You're going to be sweating. You're going to have to go to work. Get some good socks. Get some breathable socks. Try our friends at Dead Soxy. They're the most comfortable socks you will ever wear in your life. Everyone that's tried them has loved them. I've not had one person say a bad word about Dead Soxy. And trust me, if there's an issue with one of our sponsors, people let me know. Everyone that's tried it loves them. So check out our friends at Dead Soxy. Use promo code UGASports to get 25% off your order. Sign up for their little VIP thing. You get free socks. And if you got a birthday coming up, anniversary, somebody graduating and didn't get them anything, get them a bunch of the dress socks. If you got, like I said, we're less than 10 weeks away. You need your red and black socks. So get those for the upcoming season. They've been a sponsor for 2 years. Georgia's won back-to-back titles. I'm just saying, they make lucky socks. So hit up Dead Soxy when you get the chance.
I pulled up the description for that pizza I was talking about because I don't know that I did it justice. The Kickin' Barbecue Peach Pizza. Let me get my broadcaster voice. Your choice of hand-tossed dough, barbecue sauce, shredded mozzarella, crispy bacon, house-pickled jalapenos, fresh sliced peaches, and red onions, topped with a drizzle of Mike's Hot Honey.
I love Mike's Hot Honey.
It's great.
Awesome.
Yeah, getting back to that that's a good way to set up that thing here. Getting back to that pass rush, it just goes to show you how much I'm losing it, because I had that down as something I was going to say, but I couldn't remember what exactly it was. But I wrote it down just for our fans. Being a great D lineman is so much about persistence. Out of 300-plus pass rush attempts, if you get 10 sacks, that's a pretty good year. That means you can fail 97% of the time and still be an elite D lineman.
Wow.
And I'll be the first guy at the top of the press box going, why can't they get any pass rush?
Yeah.
I mean, as quarterbacks have gotten more mobile, sack numbers have gone down some. That's just a fact. A moving target's harder to hit.
And more skill level as far as reading coverages. You just don't get the easy one-on-one rushes anymore, because people scout you and they double you and they turn their protection towards you, and you got to get simulated pass rush. I mean, I heard Dan Lanning last week. I was listening to a concept that he was talking about pass rush, bringing four. It doesn't necessarily have to be the four inside guys. You can drop two off and bring guys from the linebacker, one from the safety, but get some kind of four-man pressure without looking like the same look, and the same way with 5 and 6. So that's what we do a great job of.
3 more questions from the dog event. Big Fatty 94. Who's going to be the dude, regardless of position, that we talk about during the season that maybe we're not thinking about right now? So I guess.
Well, how can you not think about Brock Bowers? Just go to bed every night and say, thank you, Lord, for letting us have him for one more year. I mean, I don't know. I haven't thought about. There's a lot of dudes out there. I mean, we got them.
I'll give you a name, Coach, and I've been on this for a while. But Darius Smith is one that I think is so unique and versatile for Georgia.
He's gotten even bigger, but he can run. One of the faster guys here. He'll be a guy we talk about next week. But he's definitely that. But I think Malachi Starks just got a chance to be really good back there, along with Bullard. I mean, we had those two guys at safety, man. It's not fair.
I keep hearing the buzz on Lovett at receiver too.
Well, that's just because he should be buzzing about it, because he's come in here and had really good stats with another team. But got to do it here like he did in Missouri. He's capable of it, that's for sure. And I think Raw will too.
I love this question from UJ alum 95. Coach, could any of the offensive linemen who played for you at UGA start on this year's current UGA team?
Yeah, I mean, you never know. We had some good linemen that played for me that got drafted, and a lot of them did well. You know, Stinchcomb brothers, George
Foster
from down there, Chris Terry. You know, we had a lot of good linemen. There's got to be some more. I can't remember offhand like I should. I'm worried about my memory sometimes.
I just assumed that you exclusively coached Stinchcombs and Luckies, and that was it. No one else was on the team, just those two families.
We had some good guys.
Now, any of those era discussions, I think, get miscalculated because you have to give those guys the advantages that current players have with facilities and nutrition and weights and things like that. And I do this with all sports. People talk about like Babe Ruth would, as he was in the 1920s, would not be a good baseball player right now. But you give him all the training that baseball players get, it'd be good.
Yeah.
Final question, and
you know what number Babe Ruth was when he hit his 27 home runs? I mean, his 60 home runs in 1927.
What?
Didn't have a number. Back then, they didn't have numbers. They went to numbers. The next year, he was number 3 after that.
Wow. I did not know that. NBA Timber Dog, we're going to wrap the show with this one. It would be great to hear a funny recruiting story from Coach just to get some off-season laughs. So, Coach, I know you have more recruiting stories than we could ever have time for in this channel, but I'd love one.
Well, you kind of teed me up here, so I'm going to give you 2 real quick ones. One was we recruited Durrell Robinson out of Spartanburg over there, and that was the year Holtz came in and took the job at South Carolina, and they wanted to make one last push on him. And his mother, Lucille, was a nice lady, and I was in there tight with him. And my Chris Selfo was recruiting him, and then he left and got the Tulane job. So my son Todd was a lead recruiter, and so he said, well, you know, Holtz is coming there. He's going to stormtroop him and everything. I said, hey, well, just tell Lucille this, that when he comes in there, he's going to tell her that he wants her to sit in a certain place. And wherever he tells her to sit, tell her to sit somewhere else just to make him mad starting off the deal. And then when they start going there, ask him if he knows what number Durrell is and what he plays. Does he play in a slot or does he play outside? But he won't know because he hadn't had a chance to study it, but it'll make him really get flustered and then say, you know, hey, you think you can get me a job at BMW like Coach Donnan did? And the BMW plant. Thanks to my friend Nelson Bowers, we got her a good job. It was a legit deal, but she was just getting ready to start it. Well, he came in there and Holtz, you know, like, hey, I want you to sit here and leave here. And she said, we'll sit over here. And, you know, just he didn't like that. And then he didn't know what Durrell played, you know, as far as wide or slot. Didn't know his number, all that. And this really got him. I love to get old Lou chap, you know. So anyhow, another story. I was in Missouri and had this older couple that had a son that was a tight end that was between us and UCLA. And they were coming on an official visit. And, you know, after you know, back then we didn't take the players to the head coach's house. The parents, we took them to our own house and we offered them something to eat and drink and all. And I was a little worried about it, offering this lady some kind of alcohol or anything because I didn't know much about her. So I said to one of our Steve Greer there was Clay Cooper, who actually went to high school with the guy, Sam Walton, and made a lot of money as an assistant coach, getting some Walmart start. But anyhow, I said, what do you think I should do? He said, hey, what do you got to lose? You can ask her. I said, it's not going to offend her. So we got over there, and the man was downstairs, and I went up in the kitchen area, and I said, Mrs. Johnson, you know, I just want to tell you, I said, I don't really want to do anything but make you happy here, and whatever, you know, we got coffee, tea, whatever you like. And if you'd like a mixed drink, she said, I'll have a bourbon and branch. right off the bat, boy. She hit me hard with that. She let me have it real quick.
Hey, Coach, did you see?
Water, man.
Did you see what the LSU fans did with the Jello shots?
Oh, they did. It'd be hard to beat them on anything. And it's amazing some of the stories I can tell on there for about an hour. We have a show about different things that happened on that.
Did you have a good bourbon to give her?
Of course, we had we had people there that took care of it. Norm Stewart was in charge. Our basketball coach was in charge of providing the booze for all the coaches to entertain the parents, and he'd been there forever. Let me tell you something. Norm Stewart was one of the best basketball coaches, but that guy was aware, man. He loved football. He was a Missouri graduate. My first year there, it's about the 1st of August, and he came by. He said, "Where's your quarterbacks and receivers?" I said, "Coach, we don't report till the 20th. He said, "I don't give a shit about that." I said, "You got to get them over here and start practicing, man." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "You got to practice those guys." I said, "Well, Coach, I've never done that before." He said, "Well," he said, "you're new here and all that, so they never have done that, but I'm going to train you how to do it." So I'll get you some Wendy's and McDonald's, and I'll find some place for them to stay, but you got to work these kids out. And we played the first game against Illinois. We looked like we've been practicing for 3 years. Norm Stewart gave me all those Wendy's and stuff. It was great.
I love that. That's a fantastic story. Well, that's why we love having you on, Coach.
Yeah, well, I enjoy talking about stuff like that. And, hey, I hope everybody has a pleasant 4th of July. And this is going to be an unbelievable year for Georgia football. Might be some peaks and valleys, but I like where we stand. I like this team. They're hungry.
Which is crazy when you think about the fact that they've won 2 titles. But I think Kirby summed it up last year when he said, well, they won the title. Aren't these guys going to slack off after they won one? He said, those guys didn't win it. The guys that are playing this year, right, or the guys that won it, they all went to the NFL. These new guys want their ring, So now we're in year 3 of that same thing of these new guys.
You ever watched the YouTube of Secretariat winning the Preakness?
Oh, yeah.
That reminds me of the Dogs this year. We're going to run away and leave their ass.
Yeah, how many links was that?
It's long. It was
a mile.
It's bad. It's bad. But that's the way. I mean, it had the challenge. Hey, how are you going to win a triple crown? What are you going to do? Kind of like us. How are we going to repeat? What are we going to do? It's like Kirby said, hey, we got to do what we got to do. But I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. All right. I guess with next week being the 4th of July, we will skip that one. We will come back on July 11th.
All right. When are you leaving?
I leave on the 13th.
Well, we'll get one more show out of you.
Yeah, get one more show, and then I will be off for a couple weeks, and then y'all can have a really good show without me. That'll be awesome. So
we'll still do those shows. We'll have SEC Media Days to discuss. We'll have plenty of stuff late July.
I was hoping you'd come in there from Rome live.
If you want me to, but I guarantee I won't know anything that's going on.
All right.
All right, folks. We'll see you guys on the 11th. Take care, and be sure to, if you would, leave us a review for the podcast and subscribe to this channel. We'll see you then.